Good morning, guys. I got a question about the Panther platform cars, the 8.8 rear end, and basically the shiftiness of the rear end. And I want to give a little explanation on why you feel that little bit of shiftiness when you're going into a turn, or like you're going into you go from a straightaway into a curve, or you get multiple curves and you feel like the rear end is just shifting a hair. That's normal. It's not excessive, it's just a little shift. And the email basically said whenever I, exit the highway or something like that, I feel a slight shift in my rear end. And I had to clarify, when you say a shift, does it feel like it's shifting to the point where you're losing control, or you just feel like a tad bit of a looseness and then all of a sudden it catches? And the gentleman said, no, it's just for a moment and then it catches. And then when I go back to the left, it's just for a moment and then it catches. And it's very, very small. That's normal. If you look at my earlier video where I actually showed you how I went through and I rebuilt the rear end of this car, and I put the 373 gear in, and I show you from start to finish how I pull everything apart. And if you look at your axles as they go through into your carrier assembly, on the inside you'll see there's a C-clip that goes on the inside of the axle after it passes through the spider gears. And that C-clip is basically what holds that axle into the carrier assembly through the axle tube. And if, with the wheels off, up in the air, the back cover off, if you take that outside of that axle and you go like this and you move it, you can see there's like a 1/4 inch, maybe 1/8 inch of play. That's normal. Those C-clips don't hold it so tight up inside that carrier housing that that it has no play. It has to have a little bit of walk to it, because if it was bound up all the time, you're talking about the amount of pressure that would be on those spider gears and stuff as well. So basically, that axle is splined. It's a 31 spline axle that goes through a set of spider gears, and on the inside of those gears, they are splined to fit that axle. And then also on the inside of the pass-through, there's a C-clip that goes over, and there's a little bitty tiny gap, so you can get that clip in and out. So those tubes are made to shift back and forth just a hair. So that feeling that you feel when you go into turns and stuff like that, that is a normal feeling of an 8.8 rear end. And you could have got it in a 27 spline, a 31 spline. You could have upgraded to something like a 34 spline or whatever, carrier assembly for an 8.8. It just all depends on what you have, but they're all designed with that C-clip that goes on the inside of the carrier assembly on the inside of the spider gear, and there's a hair gap, so you can actually work and pull things out, put things back together, and it has a little tolerance there to where that axle will shift just a hair going into a turn. If you're taking the vehicle and you're throwing it into a right turn and you're pushing all the pressure up against your right side and you're lightening your pressure on your outside, obviously your outside is going to want to carry out, and it's going to pull that clip over, and it's going to pull the one on the inside of the turn, and it's going to pull it in. So they're going to do the opposite of one another. And then when you start to go back on straight road again, then they start to balance out, and then they get their spacing back. That's a normal feeling for a free, I don't even want to call it free floating, because it's not technically free floating axle assembly that goes through the Panther platform cars. That's a normal feeling. So I just wanted to make a quick video explaining that to maybe some other people that feel that. I feel it in my car too as well. It's a normal feeling. That's a characteristic of a C-clip style axle that goes through a rear carrier assembly. Thanks, guys.
The back of that tone ring in there pressed up against that sensor and pushed it out up against that bolt. Maybe that's the best thing is just go ahead and pull that bolt out of there completely. And now it gave me enough room to go ahead and slide that clip. It's coming off right now. So now I slid that clip off. And now I can slide my axle out.